Welcome to the PerpCast. I'm your host, Ray, the social media and PR manager for Perp Games. And this is a VR-centered podcast that explores the wider games and virtual reality industry. Last week, we spoke to Johan Hogfeld, CEO of Odd Raven Studios, about the impact VR has had on local co-op games, their debut game, Carly and the Reaper Man, and some of the game's unique influences. We saw a ton of exclusive and never-before-seen concept art and footage, and now this week, we've got another special guest. During the Peace on Earth campaign, we worked together with the 3D Rudder team across multiple different days, with many Perp Games titles supporting the hardware in various unique ways. And so to talk to us a little bit about the hardware, I'm joined today by their business development manager, Florian Renault. Thanks so much for joining us, Florian. How's it going today?
I'm great, Ray. Thank you very much for having me on the podcast. It's a true pleasure to speak with my good friends of Perp Games, and it's a nice opportunity as well for me to speak about our device. So thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, and I really appreciate it because I contacted you out of the blue this week, so I really appreciate you doing this on short notice as well. It should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, sure. No problem. It's always great to be here.
Awesome. Well, as I say, it's a real pleasure to have you on the show today. So we're going to be talking all about the 3D Rudder, what it is, how it works, where it can be played, and much, much more. And I guess it kind of makes sense for us to ask the first major question. What is the 3D Rudder?
Okay, so the 3D Rudder is a foot-based VR motion controller that you can use in VR games, but also in non-VR games. But it's it's mostly designed for VR games from the start. And today we have two devices. So one that works exclusively on PlayStation 4, which means PlayStation VR, and another one that works on PC and on Xbox via the Xbox Adaptive Controller. So basically you put your feet on the device. You can only use it while seated. And by tilting the device forward, backwards, left, right, by rotating the device, you trigger inputs that will have you moving in the game or experience in VR or non-VR. So that's the 3D Rudder.
How does it complement VR in general? Like when you use it, I mean, what kind of things do you do in VR essentially when you've got the 3D Rudder attached?
So basically, most of the time, it's for movement. So you use it to move around with your feet, which makes the whole game more immersive. And also it definitely enhances gameplay. We have tons of examples in which the device deeply transforms gameplay. For instance, in some of your games, some of the Perp published games, like the Wizards, for instance, you cast a lot of spells, so you use your hands a lot. And in the meantime, you can use your feet to move around while casting spells or using the bow, this kind of stuff. So it's basically a good balance between using your feet and your hands, making the game more immersive and transforming gameplay for the best.
Yeah, as I say, many Perp titles use it. Obviously, we've got things like Operation Warcade use it as well, Honor and Duty. So we've got a wide selection of our titles that are compatible out of the box with the 3D Rudder. So if you have that device, then you buy a Perp Games title, you'll immediately be able to dive straight in on that using the Rudder, which is awesome. So where can you actually buy the 3D Rudder from right now? I mean, is it directly from yourselves? Can you buy it in a store if you go into a shop?
Yes, it is available in high street shops, but I don't have the full list right now. It's because it's a worldwide device. But anyway, you can get it online on our own website, so 3drudder.com, or on Amazon. On Amazon in all countries. So if you want to be sure to find it, go to Amazon or our website.
So, I mean, I guess diving deeper then into the 3D Rudder itself. Sort of as you've just sort of touched upon there, the idea is that you can essentially move around the VR world, and essentially all you have to be doing is sat down, like your feet are controlling your motion around the world, which is a really nice interactive way to be able to explore a virtual reality environment instead of using your analog stick or button presses on your controller. When you've created the 3D Rudder, when you've developed this model to kind of play a part in the virtual reality space, Why did you feel this was important for immersion to really bring a player closer and deeper into a game?
Well, we felt that your hands were overused because, I mean, VR is all about immersion. So we felt it was not intuitive to only use your hands for both interactions, like, shooting with a gun or using a bow or moving a shield, using a sword, for instance, and at the same time moving with your thumb or your PS Move. So we felt it would be a nice way to make VR more intuitive and accessible, because when you've never played VR, it's a bit complicated to at the same time having to move yourself by teleportation, because at the time it was mostly teleportation in games. Smooth locomotion came later, as you know, because of maybe motion sickness issues. So we felt it would be a nice solution to bring more immersion and more accessibility for random people who are not especially gamers, and so that's the best solution we came up with, basically. Other foot-based solutions for locomotion in VR, but the one we created, we wanted to make it mass market, basically. So you have many other solutions, but they are pretty expensive and it takes a lot of space. So it's mostly for LBE, and I don't know many foot-based solutions that everybody can afford.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've obviously created a very affordable device as well. And you've mentioned obviously that it's right out of the box. You can just plug it straight into your PlayStation and it'll work straight with the games. So it's no sort of issues with like buying certain types of cables or like messing around with certain types of workarounds to get it working. It's a plug and play device. We're talking about that and like how you've created this device, and you feel like there was a gap in the market for this, and obviously your hands are overused in VR, which is absolutely correct. I mean, I think they do so much to control what you do in virtual reality. So, I mean, when you sort of talk about how the idea was conceived, how was the company formed, and where did you get your start, Florian, and what's kind of your background in the games industry?
Well, the device itself was imagined by Valerio Bonora, who is the president of the company. And his background, he was an architect. And when he was modeling things on his software, he felt at the time that his hands were overused, and he wanted to find a solution to transfer some commands from his hands to his feet. And so he created like the prototype of the current 3D rudder for that purpose. And then we applied it to VR and felt it was a great solution. And we had a lot of people telling us it would be the solution for the movement issue in VR. So we took time to think, and we came up with a modified version of the prototype of the 3D rudder, which is the one that you know today. And so the main idea at first was freeing your hands to transfer some commands to your feet, because I think it's a shame that you don't use your feet at all when you play, and VR is all about immersion. So it's all about using your feet, your hands, like everything that you would use in real life. That's how the idea came up. Regarding my background, I'm just passionate about video games and new tech. And but it's the first gaming company I've been working with. So
that's awesome. So where did you come from initially? Then did you have a background outside? Were you more architect and design, or I mean?
No. I'm just business development, and I just studied international trade with a focus on English and Spanish. So I also speak Spanish, and then and no, 3D Rudder is the first company I've worked with in the video games field. And before that, I used to work for a company in the field of medicine.
Wow, quite a change. So what was it about games that kind of made you want to get into games from medicine? I mean, obviously that's quite an interesting transition.
Yeah, well, when I studied, it was just all about international trade anyway. So I didn't have a focus on a special industry. But I've always been passionate about video games, so it was a nice opportunity for me to step up in this industry that I'm really passionate about.
Yeah, that's fascinating because I mean I've chatted to a lot of people on the show before. I mean, I don't know if you know Anna Ribeiro, who worked on Pixel Ripped. She many years she was working in a judge's office, and she had her own pie business she worked on before she got into games. Just so different. So it's fascinating to hear you coming from a medicine background and coming into games. That's really awesome.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you have to do what you like. So yeah, I don't see myself outside of the gaming business anyway.
Well, I mean, I came from a background of working as an administrator for local government for about 15 years before I got my first kind of, as you call it, break in the games industry. So, I mean, there are so many people who've not necessarily who've been fortunate enough to get their career start in the industry. They've had to do a lot of work beforehand and not necessarily in fields that relate to the field that they wanted to be in. So it's really interesting to hear the different stories that come into VR, especially. Obviously, you're the business development manager at 3D Rudder. So you obviously talked about how you've come from a different background into games, and this is your first major games development role. So, I mean, what does a business development manager do at 3D Rudder? Kind of walk us through the day, walk us through your day at work.
Well, my day at work, they can be very different one to another. So basically, I have contacts in many fields. So I deal with local distributors. I deal with sometimes people from the media, the gaming media, like with you today, for instance, you're a publisher. And I also deal with game studios. So my day would be going at the office, checking my mail, and checking new business opportunities, answering to checking the news, and trying to find new potential compatible games on PlayStation VR, for instance, setting up meetings and for trade shows. I also I go to Gamescom. I went to E3 last year, so trade shows are also a big part of my job. I try to meet with companies like Sony, Ubisoft, like major partners. And so basically it's a mix between distribution, compatibility with games, and media.
Quite a lot.
Yeah, it's still a very small company, so everybody has to do a huge workload.
How big is the team at 3D Rudder actually?
We are about between 15 and 20 right now.
Wow, that's awesome. Growing nicely.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's quite a small team.
But obviously, it's emerging technology as well, isn't it? And I think obviously what people need to remember about what you've done, I mean, you obviously you've released the PlayStation VR version, but you obviously had a PC version as well, which we're actually going to get onto now. So you essentially your hardware was created with virtual reality, so you're still quite a young company in that regard. And so when the Rudder itself began as a motion controller on PC with the initial wave of headsets, I mean, what was that initial reaction like for you when you first released the hardware?
Well, the reaction was good. So we participated in a few trade shows, including CES at first. And there was a wow effect, but I'm not sure if it was for the VR itself or the device, or maybe both. But people were very impressed. But when it comes to sales, it was a bit difficult at first because, as you know, VR is still a niche market, especially on PC and especially in 2017 when we started. So now it's getting better. But from a critics point of view, it was great. From a sales point of view, it was a bit more complicated, but now it's getting better with the PSVR stuff. And that's also making us more famous and impacting the sales of the PC device as well. But at first, it was, I would say, great reaction from the critics' point of view, but a bit complicated with the sales.
Yeah, because I imagine it must have been really difficult for you initially to have really exhibited that, because I mean, I imagine that initial pitch must have been really difficult to media, to people who were potential consumers. So I mean, when you were kind of, I imagine a lot of it had to come from trade shows. People had to kind of almost experience it for themselves rather than you sort of tell them what it's like.
Exactly, because only few people knew VR back then. More people know it now, but it's very difficult to present a device that works in a technology that is so new. So it's very difficult to communicate on such a device. Especially at the time, it was only on PC. And on PC, I don't know if you're familiar with the PC device, but it comes with a software called the 3D Rudder dashboard. And so it's not plug and play, you know. It's not like on PlayStation, you just plug it and it works right away. So it was also complicated for people to understand how it works. But now it's way better. We did a good job, I think, now making the device more understandable. But at first, it was a true challenge.
Yeah, I mean, with the PC version as well, I mean, does it offer more variety and options? Because I mean, as you sort of mentioned, that the PlayStation device is plug and play, but we've got more opportunities and controls with the PC version. I mean, did you find people were kind of modifying it in different ways to kind of get different things out of it initially?
Yes. Yes, we have a lot of people that create settings that we never thought of before. For instance, at last year's Gamescom, I met with someone who came to our booth, and he said he was actually playing League of Legends with the device.
Wow.
Yeah, and he told me he was using the device because on PC you can map the device to keys on your keyboard. So I'm not familiar with League of Legends. I never played it, but I think he told me he was using it to cast spells, and it was giving him a competitive edge over his opponents because he was quicker by doing it, because he was throwing one hand. I don't know, but so yeah. And when we released the device, we never imagined that people that would be playing League of Legends with the 3D Rudder. So yeah.
Yeah, well, exactly that. I mean, I guess you envisaged it initially as a virtual reality device, but it's actually become something much more than that, which is sort of brings me to what I was next wanted to chat to you about, is one of the big advantages of the Rudder is that it can actually be used to help people with limited upper body mobility. And so obviously, you've talked about how modifications, people have done things in ways you wouldn't expect, but was that one of your main design considerations when you were creating the technology, and did you envisage it becoming something to really help people who may not necessarily have full upper body mobility?
Well, to be honest, we wanted to make VR more accessible, but we were not thinking about making gaming more accessible, especially for people suffering from limited mobility. That came after when we understood that, for instance, on PC, you could use the 3D Rudder to move yourself in a game and only use one hand. So basically, the Rudder would replace the keyboard, and you would be able to play only with one hand for the mouse. So the combo 3D Rudder plus mouse. And so that's when we started seeing the full potential of the device. And then we had this agreement with Microsoft. As you know, now the device is an official peripheral for the Xbox Adaptive Controller, which makes it compatible with any Xbox game via the Xbox Adaptive Controller. And I'm surprised to see that a lot of people actually bought the device for accessibility issues. And so basically it can work with any game on PC, any game on Xbox. So that's and also Fortnite on PS4. That's the
most importantly.
The device is compatible with Fortnite on PS4. So that's the only big non-VR game that we have compatible on PS4 with the 3D Rudder. So that's something I need to mention. And so it was added as an accessibility device for Fortnite.
That's incredible. I mean, as you say, that it started life as just almost a niche device, but actually there are potentially major benefits to the hardware for the long term, because as you say, the Xbox Adaptive Controller was a massive thing that the Microsoft put together in the last few years, and I think that it's really helped a lot of people actually be able to play games in different ways. And with your controller combined with that, I mean that opens up even more possibilities for people who've never been able to play Fortnite before, but now all of a sudden can actually get right into a game of Fortnite and be competitive, which is a game changer. And I suppose that's the incredible thing, is that you've actually helped put that together, inadvertently or otherwise in some ways.
Yeah. Also, I wanted to add something with Fortnite, because it makes me think about something else. Not only it's a great accessibility device, but also we have players on PC, especially playing Fortnite with the Rudder, just because they feel they get better gameplay. Because they say they use the mouse to aim and shoot, and the keyboard for many actions, including movement. And by moving with the 3D rudder, they can free fingers to focus on building, crouching, jumping, these kind of things. So they feel they are more competitive using the 3D rudder on PC. On PlayStation, it's more complicated, and it's more completely an accessibility option. But on PC, it's not only if you have a good setup with your keyboard and your rudder and your mouse, you can actually be more competitive.
Yeah, well, exactly that. I mean, it's opened up. Like you say, your feet are never really used when you game. It's always in your hands, and it's not necessarily just a virtual reality thing. That's obviously for anyone who's just sat at their laptop or sat at their console, just sat on their sofa, and obviously opening up your hand to do other things. I mean, obviously there are so many games with so many different control schemes now that that this kind of makes it easier for those people to kind of try and play it in a different way, and potentially get advantages in combat, but potentially, just to be more reactive, responsive in the way you play.
Yeah, that's the idea. So at first, since it's a complete new way of controlling your game, you need some time to get used to it. But after 1, 2, 3 hours, maybe you start to master completely the device, and then you can imagine completely new ways to play. We cannot think of all the possibilities, because it's just basically adding new inputs. So you can map any of the keys of your keyboard. So you can imagine maybe for racing games, like tilting the device forward to accelerate, backwards to brake, left and right to turn. So you have many possibilities. Actually, we need to start thinking about this and start to maybe promote a new way of playing some PC games, because maybe we can find some very interesting stuff. But we are still a small team, but maybe in the future we're going to try and find new ways of playing some of the most popular games, and that would be very interesting.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think you've got you've got that advantage already in how you're already compatible with, say, like the adaptive controller, and how you're already compatible in many games. And I think eventually it's going to, as more and more awareness raises about the rudder working as an accessible device, I think more and more people will want to kind of work with you, I imagine. I mean, have you ever contacted Special Effects? They basically deal with people with mobility issues in the UK, and they've found creative solutions to for people to play different types of games.
Actually, I know them because I was told about them many times, but and I know they worked with Microsoft on the Xbox Adaptive Controller, but actually we never were in touch with them. So if you have a contact, I would be really happy to speak to them.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll give you one after this call. So that's great. It'd be great to put you in touch. I think there's so many cool opportunities with this, and not just in virtual reality, but also for the wider gaming sphere. And I think some very exciting possibilities for you. So remind me after this call. But yeah, getting back to the podcast. I mean, obviously we've talked about some of the exciting possibilities of the rudder. And one thing you've also been working on is something called a ground gripper, which basically makes your play environment more stable. So, I mean, obviously with the rudder itself, with the motion, using your feet as you play, there is the opportunity on certain surfaces that it might slide around. How does it work exactly?
Well, it's extremely simple. So basically, it's just a fixed base. So if you have a PlayStation 3D rudder, you will notice that underneath it has a hole And basically, you just plug your 3D rudder to the ground gripper via this hole that the device has underneath. And then, you will just completely stop sliding if you have this issue. Nobody has the issue, but it depends on the games and on the way you play. If you're like with small movements, big movements, but some people have issues, so that's why we came up with this solution. And it's extremely simple. You just plug it to the ground gripper, and you will never move again with the rudder on the ground.
That's really cool. Really good. I think that's how it should be, really. I mean, that's ultimately what you're aiming for with the devices. You want motion, but obviously you don't want to kind of like all of a sudden your feet are on the other side of the room when you're trying to play on your laptop on the left hand side.
It's mostly with fast-paced games like Skyrim, for instance. If you need to rotate a lot and very quickly, if you're not used to 3D rudder controls, you can make it slide away, and it can be an issue. So that's why we came up with the ground gripper, and I know we're having issues, and maybe you will follow up with this, but
carry on. That actually was my next question, so I'll give you a chance to tell everyone what's going on.
Okay, so the ground gripper, we had bad luck basically. So at first we were supposed to deliver the devices in January, and we had several issues. So first, we were late on our production cycle, so that's completely our fault. But then we were supposed to get the devices from China, and they got lost on the way, so we lost the carriage. And then another issue that everybody would understand, I guess, it's the virus right now, the epidemic, and so the production was stopped because the factory was closed for a few weeks. So it obliged us to delay again the delivery date, and so basically right now the estimated delivery date is end of March. I hope we will be able to keep this date. And to compensate all the people who purchased the device and will get it with delay, we will offer a free PlayStation VR game to apologize.
Oh, that's great. I mean, obviously, the coronavirus has, I think, caught a lot of us off guard. Look at the situation of PAX, look at the situation of GDC. There are sporting games that are actually being cancelled right now. I mean, obviously there's been shortages of Oculus Quest, and there's rumors about next generation having some shortages. So it's affected everyone and everything on a global scale. And obviously, as you say, bad luck in your situation. It was something that wasn't anticipated, but has actually had a massive impact on everything around it.
So we hope the issue will be solved soon, and so we can deliver the ground grippers to everyone that has purchased it. And I also hope that we're gonna get PS5 and Xbox Series X at the end of the year. I hope it won't be delayed, because I'm really looking forward to it. And above all of that, I hope it's gonna stop soon, because a lot of people are suffering from it, especially in China and Asia, and that's a true problem.
Blessed to all those affected as well. It's horrible, and hope things are resolved soon. But talking about, obviously, you've mentioned about the ground gripper there, and obviously the effect that it has on stabilizing you in the gaming environment. But I want to talk a bit more about the kind of support that you have for games on the rudder right now, because I mean, we've mentioned that there are a lot of Perp Games titles that support the rudder out of the box, but I mean, there are also a lot of games, virtual reality games, that some people feel like probably could support the rudder but don't support the rudder for one reason or another. So I just wanted to ask you, how difficult is it from your perspective and from a developer's perspective to enable rudder support in a game? For instance, if it's an older game with movement and it was programmed in a certain way, is there a challenge to make it compatible?
Well, it's a tough question, because it truly depends on the game. But if the game was designed to have free locomotion, it's extremely easy. But if it wasn't designed that way, it's very difficult. But take the example of a game that was designed with movement. It's very, very, very simple. So basically what we do is we send the studio a device that they can use on PC and PlayStation. And we also send them the SDK. So SDK for Software Development Kit. And with that, they just implement the device extremely easily. So you need to know that today most developers, they use either Unity or Unreal to develop their games, and only very big game studios or publishers use their own game engine. But most of the time it's either Unity or Unreal. So we have plugins for that, and basically it can take them like maybe some of the studios, they implemented the rudder in less than 1 day. So it's pretty easy. Then we just try a 3D rudder compatible version of the game. And if we are happy with the implementation we have done, we give the green light, and they can release the patch, or they can implement compatibility for the release of the game, depending on the timing. But it's extremely easy.
Yeah. Do you support the developers when they're making that transition? I mean, do you work with them closely to make that transition possible and convert it over to your hardware?
Yeah, if they have any issue, on the technical side, we have a team that's here to help them. But most of the time it's done pretty smoothly. There are no big problems. And then when the job is done, we just check it out. And if we are not happy with the implementation, because we feel that it will generate motion sickness, if we feel that they should have used this curve instead of another one, we're gonna give a feedback to them, and we only release the patch when both the game studio and our team is happy with the implementation. What we don't want is bad implementation of the device in a game, because it will give bad publicity to the game and to us. So that's not that's what we try to avoid.
Yeah, but it sounds awesome, and it sounds really seamless. And I guess any games that are built now, I suppose that's the key thing now, is making sure that you're in contact with them as early as possible to see if there's a way of working together. And I suppose that leads to my point, is that how do you approach those studios, and like how do you kind of find out about the PlayStation games or the PC games you want to work on? And are you perhaps at a stage where studios are reaching out to you in the first instance? Yes,
it happened on multiple occasions. We got messages from game studios that were interested in our tech. I just read the news and I speak to my network, because now I know many developers. So it's a small world basically, so it's pretty easy to reach someone now, because everybody knows each other more or less. So I use my network. I just check the news like everyone else. We have great PSVR or VR oriented YouTube channels or media, and when I feel a game would be great with the device, I try to make contact with the dev team, and they accept or they don't, and then we try to make it happen. But most of the time, there's no problem. They are happy to do so. We don't try to be compatible with old games. We only want to be compatible with games in which it makes sense. For instance, a game like Beat Saber, no one would play Beat Saber with the 3D rudder, so it doesn't make sense. So what we try to do is to be compatible only with games in which the device would make sense. If a game is completely designed with no locomotion at all, we will not try to change the gameplay and be compatible at any cost. No, what we try to do is basically make games better by implementing a new way to control your game. So basically, we have a few games. I mean, maybe half of the games that we have compatible. You have things that you cannot do without the 3D rudder. To give you a few examples, like for instance, a game in which you use a bow. How do you use a bow today only with the PS moves? Like, how can you? Because most games, they use hand movement. You have to point at one direction and press on the move button to move yourself in this direction. So how can you, only with the PS moves, go backwards and shoot an arrow at the same time? It's impossible. You can only do it with the 3D rudder. For instance, games based on bow combat, they are perfect games for the device, because it can only enhance gameplay.
And obviously, you as you say, you don't want just any game to be compatible. And I know there are people out there who are saying they have lists and lists of games that they would love to be compatible with the 3D rudder, but it may not necessarily make sense to you from a business standpoint to do that. I suppose when you approach a studio, you also have to be, I guess you always have to be aware that it's a game that you actually want to work on. You feel like you can benefit in some way.
Yes, yeah. I mean, on the business side, it's not a problem if you are compatible with games that would not necessarily make sense. But it's just focus. We are a small team. I cannot speak with all game studios in the world, so we need to choose with caution.
But I suppose if there are any developers listening to this and they're interested in getting their game on the 3D Rudder, I mean, is it better just to contact you directly, or do you have like a contact form where people
Well, they can contact us via the contact form on our website, or they can contact me directly, so I'm easy to find. So my name is Florian Renault, and you can find me on LinkedIn, for instance. I'm always happy to chat with game developers anyway. So if you want to reach out to me, go to LinkedIn and connect with me, and we can have a chat. No problem.
Sounds good. We've talked a lot about the PC version now of the Rudder and the accessibility possibilities of it. Arguably, perhaps you're best known for your work on the PlayStation VR Rudder, which is more recent. And so you moved across to that. And obviously, as we've mentioned, there's a lot of titles compatible with the hardware, like the Wizards and Sorrento. And what would you say, compared to the PC release, what was the reaction like to the PlayStation VR Rudder?
Compared to the PC release, the reaction was better, was great, because as you know, a lot of people have issues with the PS moves that were not designed for VR at first. So the Rudder enables many things that you cannot do with the moves, starting by a very simple thing that is having progressive speed, because on the moves you don't have thumbsticks, so you just have to press a button to move around, and with the Rudder you can move slower or faster, so depending on how much you tilt the device. So yeah, basic things like this made the PSVR Rudder much more attractive than the PC Rudder. Also, the fact that we are under official PlayStation license. So basically, people think it's a pure Sony device, which is not. So I guess it helped a lot with the communication and the attractiveness of the device, because when it's under an official PlayStation license, it's also a seal of quality, I would say.
It's almost like the Nintendo, they do that a lot with their third-party hardware. They don't necessarily have their names on it, but they always put that seal of quality on the box in the little sticker. So that reminds me a lot of that. I suppose when we're talking a bit about the differences between the two rudders, I mean, what are there any sort of major technological adjustments? Obviously, when you built the first one, it was obviously, that was your initial device. I mean, has the design changed anyway? Are there any differences underneath the hood, or any tweaks that people may not know about?
Well, actually, not at all. It's the same device, more or less. The only difference is the design. You have the PlayStation logo at the center, and you have blue pads instead of red or black pads. It also comes directly with the foot bars. For the PC version, you have to purchase them separately. And you have this hole underneath that makes it compatible as well with the Grand Gripper. But apart from that, it's the same device. The reason why we have two devices is that by contract, the PS device cannot be compatible with the PC. So we need to have two devices.
That makes sense. Yeah, but it's interesting to know that. I mean, I obviously wondered, because it was a different model, whether or not you'd made any adjustments to it based on feedback or anything like that.
Yeah, no. The only major change is that you can use the Grand Gripper with the PlayStation VR device, and you cannot with the PC device. That's something.
Yeah, that's something. Exactly. Yeah, we've talked about how it's compatible with the Xbox and the PlayStation and with the PC, but excitingly, you've also announced that you've added support to the Oculus Quest, which has become like the major thing in VR right now for all the right reasons. People may not know about it yet, obviously, for the power of the link cable. But is there perhaps plans for more native support with the Quest, or is that, how is currently the support working for Oculus Quest?
Okay, so you are right. Right now, the device is compatible with the Quest for people using the link cable. Regarding native support with Oculus Quest, well, all I can say is that we are speaking to everyone. We are speaking with Microsoft, with Sony, and we are speaking with Oculus. But as of now, there is nothing I can announce.
Nice. No, it's good to know that obviously those conversations are happening, and obviously you've got that support built in anyway. So people can still use the rudder with the Quest if they want to, but basically using the link cable. So how has that been? I mean, what's the feedback been like for that at the moment?
Well, I don't think many people are aware of that. And the feedback, I mean, it's just working as it would be with the Rift or the HTC Vive. There is no difference. It's just working. So we have no special feedback from that. I mean, it's exactly the same as if it was an Oculus Rift. Since it's linked to a PC, it benefits from the power of a PC. So yeah, it's no different.
Well, there you've got it. If you've got a PC rudder and you got yourself a Quest, you can give yourself a try. Try the rudder on the Quest and see what you think, and let us know. I'd be really interested to see how you find it.
Yes, please do that.
So obviously we've talked about the potential that the rudder could be used for non-PlayStation VR games at some point, PC games. So I mean, are there certain games? I know you've mentioned that Fortnite is playable on the PlayStation 4 with the rudder. Is there any other games you can think of that might support it, or
what I can tell you is that we are aware of the fact that the device can be used as a nice accessibility device, and we saw it with Fortnite. So we made a good job with Epic Games. It was very, very fast, and it was great to work with them. So they implemented the device in their game in like maybe 3 days, which is very, very fast for such a big company. And what I can say right now is we are working with other major publishers to make it compatible with other AAA games on PlayStation, but nothing is certain already, and I cannot say more about this. But we are speaking with very strong publishers regarding possible 3D rudder compatibility with very, very big games.
Wow, I'm really excited to hear more about that. So I'll be making sure to keep checking your channels for more information on that. And sort of a similar question. Obviously, you probably can't announce anything right now. As you all know, we're approaching a new generation of headsets and hardware. I want to know how you see the 3D rudder adding to that gaming ecosystem in the next coming years. I mean, do you have plans in place maybe to support the Xbox Series X, the PS5, maybe even the Nintendo Switch?
Well, okay, you're right when you say that the device works with standard PC games or PS4 games, but our main focus will always be VR, and as of now there is no VR announced for Xbox or from Nintendo. So our main focus will be, of course, PS5, because it will come with a version 2 of the PSVR. So we have a great relationship with Microsoft, and I'm sure that when they announce VR, if they do, we will be definitely interested in having an Xbox device. But as of now, I don't know if it's in their plans. So I'm just like you. I don't know. Definitely, we will do our best to be compatible with the first PS5 PSVR 2 games.
So we're going to end it before we get into the fan questions and ask, is there a game that you would personally like to see 3D rudder support for? One that perhaps you don't have already?
Yes, there is. So I'm a huge fan of the Elder Scrolls series. So just like a lot of people, I would like to have the device compatible with Skyrim VR, but for some reason right now it's not possible. But definitely that's the game I would love to have compatible with the device, because I'm a huge fan of the series. I've played Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim when it was first released about 10 years ago. So yeah, it would be Skyrim. Yeah. Which game would you like to play with the device, which is not compatible?
I'm probably very similar to you. I think Skyrim is a perfect fit for the rudder, because it's kind of like the motion around in the world. Obviously, you've got so much on the controllers and the mapping scheme. So I would probably be in a very similar situation to you. Other than that, maybe something like Blood and Truth would be interesting.
Yeah, I didn't play it, so I don't know for sure. But I think they have a very special movement system. So I don't know if it could fit.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe I'm throwing at random games.
they considered it, but at the end of the day, they decided not to, because it was not in line with their movement scheme. So, but
I tell you something else I thought would be quite interesting would maybe be something like Creed, a boxing game. So like you kind of like you move kind of like you duck and weave essentially using the rudder. that could be quite interesting.
Okay, it's noted, and I will try to make that happen. I never thought about boxing games because in my head, when you play a boxing game, you are standing up and using your legs to avoid punches and stuff. So I didn't see that in line with what we propose at 3D Rudder. But now that you mention it, maybe I would need to do some research and try it myself. And maybe it would be a good fit actually. But
there's a lot of choice out there, I think. But as I say, we've got a few fan questions as well. Some of people have asked questions that we've already kind of answered, so we won't go into those points. But one sort of half question comes from Jay Nally, who says he swears by his 3D Rudder when it comes to playing PSVR games. He's one of the lucky ones to get sick when playing VR, or at least used to. But for some reason, using the 3D Rudder helps with movement big time, and now I rarely get sick. It's quite interesting how people are now finding they can play VR games using your device where they couldn't before.
Yes, and we had many testimonies saying the same, that people were feeling less sick when playing VR games when they used the rudder. So that's really interesting, and I think it's normal because it's all about tricking your brains. And by using your feet to move in a virtual world, I think it helps tricking the brain because your feet are associated with movement. So by using your feet, I think it makes more sense for your brains and makes you less sick.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And I think that's a really great point that they've made there. That essentially it's opened up more possibilities for more people to play VR because not everyone can deal with the motion of it, and not everyone enjoys that feeling, and they do tend to get sick with it. So it has sort of helped some people kind of orient themselves in a virtual world where perhaps before they couldn't do that.
What makes you sick is the frame rate, basically. For instance, there are games that have a crazy frame rate, like Doom VF4 on PC. I could play it for hours without feeling sick 1 second. But for some reason, other games that has a lower frame rate, you get sick directly after like 10 minutes. So I think it's definitely the frame rate and the stability of the frame rate as well.
Technology improving all the time. It'll be interesting to see how frame rate affects virtual reality and motion sickness in the years to come as well, as the technology improves and gets more advanced. So yeah, that's a great question. Well, great point made there by Jay Nally, and a great answer for that. Condition Red then asks, he again makes a similar point, but then goes into a question. When he tried one, he found it was a bit uncomfortable due to having feet too close together. So his question would be, are there any plans for another model with larger or longer skateboard-shaped platforms, or perhaps an add-on that would snap on?
I'm very sorry about it, but as of now, no, there is no plan for another device or an add-on that would make the device wider, I guess. As of now, no, but it's interesting to see this kind of feedback. So maybe he should try putting the device closer to him or further to him and see if it changes, because I feel maybe I also have this problem if the rudder is too close to me. But if you try to put it like a bit further away, this issue might disappear because your legs would be in such a way that it wouldn't be an issue anymore. So maybe you should try that. Try to put it a bit further from yourself, from your chair or your sofa.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, when you talk about that, I mean, when people feel like they need to try before they buy, I mean, how would you do that? I mean, I guess, would you need to go to a trade show? I mean, do you sometimes have exhibitions at stores to try them?
Yeah, we had it at first when it was a completely new product, but now it's going to be more complicated. But yes, we participate in trade shows. Last year, we had a great booth at Gamescom. And we were supposed to have one at GDC as well, but with the virus issue, we won't have a booth this year. But just follow our social media, and when we participate in a trade show, we mention it. So if you're in Germany, maybe in Paris for Paris Games Week, and if we attend the show, we will be happy to welcome you on the booth and have you try the device.
My last sort of fan question comes from Jimster71, and we've sort of touched upon it a little bit briefly here, but kind of like elaborate on it a bit more. How do the 3D Rudder team envisage the future of Locomotion in VR, and how do you see your part in that?
It's a very interesting question. What we are noticing right now is that we tend to have less and less hand controls. If you see what Oculus is doing with the hand tracking and fingers tracking, you can see that they don't even need controllers anymore. We have our space in that, like, if you don't have anything in your hands, so how do you move around? Because what they did that to make the games more immersive than ever. Yeah, so basically by using your hands, how you would use them in real life. So I feel we have the right device right now that enables you to have complete immersion with your hands and at the same time being able to move with your feet. So I think we are going on the right side of VR history right now. And we hope it's extremely ambitious, but the goal would be basically being what the mouse is to the computer, which would be the standard way of moving yourself in a VR game or experience in the future. So that's our goal, and I think from what I am seeing right now that we are going in the right direction, and I think that what Oculus is doing right now is just proving us right. But time will tell. It sounds a bit cocky, but we think it's the way to go.
Well, you've well positioned yourselves, and I think that's the beauty of it. I mean, I think what's interesting about your story and the 3D Rudder story is that when the device was perhaps first conceptualized, people didn't really understand the benefits of it. But as time has gone on, as people have tried it, as VR has grown, we've actually seen more and more how important it's becoming to the VR sphere and obviously to the Locomotion conversation. And I certainly feel like, as you say, you are well positioned as a market leader at the moment to really influence that in the coming years. So really exciting times ahead for you and the team.
Well, I feel that what Oculus is doing, I mean, how can you move if you don't have controllers in your hands or at your feet? It's
mind-blowing stuff. And hand tracking is a dream. I've actually, even though it's still technically only in beta, it doesn't feel like it's in beta. It's quite amazing. There are certain things, perhaps there are certain gestures are not quite right yet, but it's incredible. Really
impressed on how VR has evolved. Like, I remember myself trying VR headsets 3 years ago, and I can tell now it's completely different. It has improved so much. So I cannot even imagine how it will be in 5-10 years from now. So can you imagine if they truly mastered this new technology, hand tracking, finger tracking?
Yeah, wireless headsets are almost going to be essential, I think, as well. I feel
we can only dream about it. I think I think we will be very impressed by what we will see in the coming years. And 10 years from now, I feel that VR will be mainstream.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we're already seeing the seeds being sown a little bit here, and with all the technology we're seeing at the moment, it's a very exciting time for the medium, and I think PS5 will certainly help usher that forward as well. Well, that is going to do it for today's show. This has been really, really interesting and really fun chatting to you, Florian. I think we've learned a lot about the Rudder and a lot about you and a lot about how much of an impact you're going to have on VR and with 3D Rudder. So really, really interesting. Thanks so much for tuning in, and let everyone know where they can find you and anything else you may want to share.
Yeah, if you want to be aware of the news regarding the device, follow our social media, follow us on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Facebook. And if you're a developer, don't hesitate to contact me via LinkedIn if you want to see your game compatible with the device. And yeah, so anyway, I'll be happy to have a chat with anyone from the industry. Thank you very much, Ray, for having me on your podcast. It was great talking to you, and hope to talk to you again very soon.
Definitely, yeah. I think we'll have plenty to chat about in the future as well, because especially the way things are developing on a day-to-day basis. So really exciting times ahead. Thanks so much again. So if you want your questions answered during a future show, reply in the comment section below or send us a message on your preferred social platform and we'll do our best to answer them. You could even win yourself some goodies in future shows, so stay tuned for that. What would you like to see in future PerpCasts? Sound it below in the comment section, as we're looking to make this a show as informative and interesting to you as possible. You can find Perp Games on Facebook, tweet us at Perp Games, subscribe on YouTube using the link in the description below. You can also find us on Discord, Instagram, LinkedIn, and get all the news on our product on perpgames.com. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time.